Welcome to the deep dive. Imagine growing fresh food anywhere, really, powered entirely by the sun. I mean, it sounds like science fiction, but it's happening now.
It really is. It's this convergence of solar energy and indoor agriculture. You often hear it called controlled environment agriculture, CEA.
Hmm.
And it's rapidly changing how and where we produce our food.
Right. And today we're taking a deep dive into this pretty comprehensive research study. It's titled The Role and Future of Solar Energy in Controlled Environment Agriculture, a comprehensive analysis. Quite a mouthful.
It is, yeah. But our mission here is to kind of cut through all that complexity, pull out the really important insights, the key nuggets, and help you understand the tech behind it all.
Yeah, the technology, the benefits, which seem huge, but also the challenges and where this is all going.
Exactly. It's a mix of sustainability, some really cutting-edge tech, and fundamentally feeding the planet. The study is packed with some surprising details.
Okay, let's dive in then.
So first things first, maybe we should clarify what we're actually talking about, because
Yeah.
the study uses a few related terms.
Good idea. So at the core, there's controlled environment agriculture, CEA, with solar integration.
Mhm. And CEA is basically like optimizing plant growth indoors by controlling literally everything: light, temperature, humidity, nutrients, the works.
And the solar integration part just means using solar power for those systems, often, panels right on the roof. Pretty straightforward.
Right. Then there's the broader term, solar-powered indoor farming. That just covers any kind of indoor growing that uses solar as a major power source.
For the lights, the climate control, irrigation.
Exactly. It's really about breaking away from relying on fossil fuels for these, let's face it, pretty energy-hungry setups.
Okay. And within that, you get the specific types, like solar-powered vertical farming. That's the one everyone pictures, right? Plants stacked in layers.
Yeah, and they really rely on artificial light, multiple layers needing illumination. So putting solar panels right onto or even into the building structure is, well, it's pretty essential.
The study mentions companies like Alta CEA using the term agrivoltaics here, which is interesting because,
Traditionally, agrivoltaics meant something different, didn't it?
yeah,
Like solar panels out in a field, sharing space with crops or animals grazing underneath, dual land use.
right. But for vertical farms, it's more about dual use of the building itself. Growing food inside, generating power right there on the outside.
Power at the point of consumption. Very efficient.
Then you've got solar-powered hydroponics, growing plants in water with nutrients.
Mm-hmm. And solar powers the pumps, keeps the water moving, aerated, powers the lights. The study highlights it as really eco-friendly and maybe more cost-effective long-term than grid-powered hydro.
And solar-powered aquaponics, too, that cool system with fish and plants working together.
That symbiotic relationship. Fish waste feeds the plants, plants clean the water for the fish, solar runs the pumps, aeration, heating, lighting, the whole system.
It's designed to be really sustainable, a closed loop, though the study does point out you need careful management, biofilters and things.
Sure, it's complex, but the main takeaway is whether you're stacking plants high, using water systems, or pairing fish and plants, these indoor methods need a lot of energy.
And solar offers a green way to provide that power. It's pretty transformative stuff when you think about food demand, less available land, sustainability.
Absolutely. It's a huge step towards greening indoor agriculture.
Okay, so that's the landscape, what these things are and why they matter. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the actual technology, because it's definitely more involved than just, sticking a panel on a greenhouse roof.
Oh, much more. The absolute foundation is photovoltaics, PV, converting sunlight to electricity. You've got your standard types, monocrystalline, poly, thin film. But the study really digs into some exciting advancements for CEA.
Like these perovskite solar cells, PSCs.
Exactly. These are like emerging really fast.
Hmm.
They've got potential for high efficiency, maybe lower production costs. They can be flexible, and they perform pretty well, even when the light isn't perfect,
And the really cool part for indoor growing,
is that they can be engineered to be semi-transparent. Imagine that, generating power and letting light through for the plants below. It's a game changer for greenhouses, maybe even building walls in vertical farms.
wow.
Yeah. Now, the study says there are still challenges, stability issues, things like that, but the research is moving incredibly fast.
That is amazing. And then there are tandem solar cells, combining different materials.
Right, like putting perovskite on top of traditional silicon. The idea is to capture a wider range of the light spectrum. The study mentions researchers hitting over 30% efficiency on a decent-sized cell.
And why is that 30% plus number so important?
Well, think about urban farms. Space is always tight, right? Higher efficiency means more power from the same small rooftop or facade area. Getting over 30% could mean meeting a much bigger chunk of the farm's energy needs right on site.
Which leads perfectly into building integrated photovoltaics, BIPV.
Exactly. Solar materials literally becoming part of the building, the facade, windows, the roof, perfect for those space-constrained city farms where you can't just put up a field of panels.
And for greenhouses, you need that transparency. So transparent or semi-transparent PV is key.
Absolutely. The study talks about things like partially transparent silicon or even these dye-sensitized solar cells that can absorb some light for power, but let the plant-friendly wavelengths pass through.
And there are specialized panels, like Volterra's, boasting like 96% light transmission. That's huge for not shading the crops too much.
And then there are films like UV-Grow. They don't generate electricity themselves, but they use quantum dots to shift light, converting less useful UV or blue light into orange and red light that plants love. The study says that alone can boost yields up to 20%.
Just by optimizing the light quality reaching the plants. Incredible.
And to squeeze every last drop of energy out of these panels,
Yeah.
especially if shading is tricky, you've got solar tracking systems.
Right, tilting and turning to follow the sun.
Yeah, dual-axis trackers can give you a really significant boost in energy capture. Alta CEA, mentioned in this study, says their devices can almost double the average daily power generated.
Wow.
And critically, for those agrivoltaic setups, the tracking can also be managed to control how much shade the crops underneath get, so it's optimizing energy and plant conditions.
Okay, so we've captured the sunlight. But step 2 is crucial. The sun isn't always out, and these farms need power around the clock. Lights, climate, pumps.
Great.
They can't stop.
Yeah.
So energy storage is, well, it's everything.
It really is non-negotiable. You have to store that daytime solar energy for nighttime use, cloudy days, handling peak loads, or just plain backup power, especially if you're off-grid or the grid isn't totally reliable.
Batteries seem to be the main way. Lithium-ion is dominant, right? High energy density, long life, charge fast, scalable.
All true. The study mentions a typical cooling setup might need something like 10, 15 kilowatt hours to run for 8, 12 hours. So Lion fits that bill.
But there's always a but.
There is. And it's a big one highlighted in the study. First, the upfront cost is still pretty high. They need careful thermal management. And this stat from Clean Energy Associates, CEA,
Oh, yeah.
it's striking. They report 72% of battery energy storage system BESS defects happen at the system integration level.
72%. Not the battery cells themselves, but how the whole system is put together.
Exactly. That's a massive operational risk. If that integrated system fails, your environmental controls could go down. You could lose an entire crop. It shows just how critical proper engineering and installation are.
That really puts the complexity into perspective. It's not just buying batteries off the shelf.
Not at all. Beyond lithium-ion, the study mentions flow batteries are emerging. Good for longer storage durations, maybe 4 to 12 hours or more. But they tend to be bulkier, lower energy density.
And solid-state batteries are on the horizon. Future tech.
Yeah, promising higher density, better safety, but still mostly in development.
And it's not just electricity, right? The study mentioned thermal storage, too.
Right, using phase change materials, PCMs, to store heat or cold. This can significantly reduce the electricity needed later for heating or cooling. They're much denser than water for thermal storage.
So choosing storage is, it's complicated. Balancing costs, lifespan, density, efficiency, reliability, and keeping that 72% integration risk in mind.
Okay, another huge energy draw, especially in vertical farms or windowless grow rooms, is the lighting itself.
Artificial light, which is where LEDs come in. They've really changed the game.
Absolutely. LEDs are the standard now. They use way less energy. The study gives an example, maybe less than half the power per square foot compared to older HID lights. They last much, much longer, potentially 10 years.
And crucially, they produce less heat.
Which is a double win. Saves energy on cooling the space, and it lets you put the lights closer to the plants, making them even more effective.
Plus, the control you get now is amazing. Tunable spectrum LEDs.
Yeah, that's precision agriculture right there. Growers can create custom light recipes, maybe more blue light for leafy growth, more red light for flowering, tailoring the light spectrum for specific crops or even desired traits.
And you layer smart controls and AI on top of that.
Then it gets really dynamic. Programming light cycles, dimming, remote management, and now AI is starting to adjust light automatically based on how the plants are actually doing, the ambient conditions, even energy prices. The study suggests AI can boost energy utilization by 15–20%, and is great for fault detection too.
So you've got all these advanced components, panels, storage, lights, controls. How do they actually fit together? The integration strategy must vary a lot.
It really does depend on the type of farm. For greenhouses, you often see rooftop PV, maybe just over the non-growing areas like packing sheds, or you see those integrated agrivoltaic greenhouses using semi-transparent panels.
Placement, orientation, tilt, all carefully planned, probably using fancy computer models.
Yeah, ray tracing models, things like that, to balance the energy gain with the light the plants need.
For vertical farms, with their massive lighting load, rooftop PV and BIPV are really common, especially in cities. Some are even building solar right into the structure itself.
Location matters too. Being near existing cheap renewable energy sources can be part of the strategy.
And what about the completely enclosed systems? Container farms, grow rooms, no natural light at all.
For those, off-grid solar generators PV plus battery storage are often ideal. They can be self-sufficient. Solar-powered shipping container farms are definitely a growing niche, perfect for remote spots or quick urban deployment. The study mentioned one needing about 6 kilowatts of power total.
So definitely no single blueprint. It's got to be modular, adaptable, depends on the farm, the location, the scale, the crops.
And the study really emphasizes that the next level is making these systems work together intelligently. That's where smart energy management systems, SANAS, come in, powered by AI and the Internet of Things, IoT.
Right, the intelligent farm idea, optimizing everything in real time.
Exactly. The SEMS looks at solar generation, battery charge level, the farm's energy needs, grid prices, weather forecasts, and makes decisions. When to charge the battery, when to discharge it, when to pull from the grid, maybe even when to slightly dim the lights if energy prices spike.
AI doing forecasting, predictive maintenance on the panels and batteries.
The study claims AI can improve overall energy use by 15–20% and catch potential faults much earlier, like 85% better fault detection. That's huge for reliability.
And you can combine solar with other renewables too, right? Hybrid systems?
Yes, hybrid renewable energy systems, maybe solar plus wind or biomass, adds resilience, especially for off-grid locations.
Yeah.
Storage acts as the crucial buffer between them.
Plus demand response. Farms adjusting their energy use based on what the grid needs.
Yeah, dimming lights slightly, adjusting HVAC set points during peak grid demand. It saves the farm money and helps stabilize the grid. It's a win-win.
So it's moving towards these farms being active participants in the energy system, not just passive consumers. Self-optimizing based on plant needs, weather, the market.
That's the vision. Truly intelligent, integrated systems.
Okay, wow. That is a lot of sophisticated, evolving technology. Which brings us to the big question. Why bother? What are the actual tangible benefits the study highlights?
Oh, the benefits are substantial. Across the board, environmental, economic, social. Environmentally, the headline is the reduced carbon footprint. Simple as that. Solar power is clean electricity.
And indoor farms are energy hogs, so replacing fossil fuel grid power with solar makes a massive difference in greenhouse gas emissions.
Huge difference. Plus, localized production cuts down significantly on transport emissions. The study cited one analysis showing a noticeable CO2 reduction per square meter just from growing closer to consumers.
And it drives sustainability and resource efficiency in other ways too, right? Water savings.
Massive water savings. These systems, especially hydroponics and aquaponics, can use up to 90% less water than conventional farming.
Yeah.
And solar powers the efficient pumps and systems that make that possible.
Land use efficiency is another big one. Vertical farms are famous for this.
Yeah, producing maybe 10 to 20 times the yield on the same footprint as a traditional field. Plus, using rooftops or building facades for solar means energy generation without needing extra land. Agrivoltaics give you that dual land use.
And less need for pesticides and herbicides in those controlled environments.
Right. Fewer pests, fewer diseases mean less chemical intervention, which is better for the environment and for us.
And producing locally cuts food miles, reduces spoilage during transport, less food waste. It just makes the whole food chain more efficient and sustainable.
Then you look at the economic benefits. The biggest one is energy cost savings. Electricity is often a huge chunk of the operating expenses for these farms.
That cannabis example was striking, potentially $2,500 per kilogram just for energy.
Exactly. Solar directly slashes those electricity bills. And maybe even more importantly, it provides predictable energy costs. You're not as vulnerable to volatile grid prices.
Okay, but the upfront cost is high. What about the return on investment, the ROI?
It is definitely a long-term play, but the study suggests it's attractive, especially with incentives. General solar farm ROI might be 10–20%, payback in 5–10 years. For vertical farms using renewables, the study mentioned potentially 20–25% ROI in the early years.
And government incentives help a lot there.
A huge amount. Things like the 30% investment tax credit in the U.S., or USDA grants like REAP that can cover up to half the cost for rural energy projects. These make the numbers work much better.
And it opens up market opportunities too, doesn't it, selling sustainably grown produce?
Absolutely. Consumer demand for sustainable food is growing fast. Being able to label your produce as solar-powered or sustainably grown could be a real market advantage, potentially justifying a premium price. The whole sector is expanding.
So the economics aren't just about saving money on bills. It's about accessing green finance, maybe carbon credits, meeting corporate sustainability targets, even making money from grid services.
Right. These operations become much more than just farms. They're energy managers and sustainable brands.
And what about the social and broader agricultural benefits?
Increased food security is a massive one. Imagine having fresh, local produce available year-round, totally independent of the weather or season.
Crucial for cities, maybe food deserts, remote communities, places with tough climates.
Exactly. It reduces reliance on long, sometimes fragile, import supply chains and strengthens local food systems.
Community empowerment comes up too, decentralized solar microgrids.
Yeah, providing energy independence and resilience. And the study points to community solar projects linked with CEA that do more than just grow food. They offer education, create jobs, build community cohesion, improve access to healthy food.
And what about the crops themselves? Yields, quality.
The controlled conditions powered reliably by solar and managed smartly generally lead to higher yields per unit area and better, more consistent quality nutrition, flavor, appearance.
Plus new jobs, right? These
Oh.
green-collar jobs in tech, operations, maintenance.
Definitely. And it can inspire new ways of thinking about farming, attract a new generation.
Okay, it sounds incredibly promising on many fronts, but let's be realistic. There have to be significant challenges and limitations. The study doesn't shy away from those, does it?
Not at all. And they are significant. The absolute biggest hurdle is the high initial investment. We touched on it, but the combined cost of the solar array, the batteries, and the sophisticated CEA infrastructure, it's a lot.
The study gave figures like $1,000 per square meter for a vertical farm, plus tens of thousands for solar, agrivoltaics even more. That's tough for smaller players.
It can be prohibitive, honestly, which leads to the next major challenge, energy storage. You need that 247 power, but batteries are expensive, complex to manage.
And we have to come back to that shocking 72% statistic about BESS defects being at the system integration level.
It bears repeating. It highlights a massive reliability risk. If your integrated energy system fails, especially the storage component controlling nighttime or cloudy day operations, you risk catastrophic crop loss. Getting that integration right, making it robust and reliable, is a critical technical and operational challenge.
And just the general system integration complexity, tying solar, storage, HVAC, lighting, fertigation, AI, it's not plug and play.
Far from it. It requires specialized engineering expertise, careful planning, and rigorous quality control throughout the installation and commissioning process.
And ongoing maintenance adds costs and requires skilled staff too. Cleaning panels, managing vegetation around ground mounts.
Right. Panel cleaning even uses water, which can be a real issue in water-scarce areas.
There are environmental and geographical limits too. What if you're not in a sunny place?
Exactly. Low sunlight availability, think cloudy regions, northern latitudes, areas with high air pollution means your solar output is lower. You might need a much larger, more expensive solar array and more battery storage to compensate, or rely more on grid backup, which impacts the economics and sustainability claims.
Space constraints are another one, especially in cities.
Big time. Utility-scale solar needs land. Rooftop space is limited. BIPV helps, integrating into the building itself, but even that might not generate enough power for a really large, energy-intensive indoor farm.
And we mentioned water for cleaning. What about the components themselves? Manufacturing, end of life.
That's a valid concern. Manufacturing solar panels and batteries is resource and energy intensive. Some materials used can be rare or even toxic, and developing effective, large-scale recycling programs for panels and batteries is still an ongoing challenge. Construction can also have local environmental impacts.
And zooming out, there are broader scalability and adoption barriers. We talked about the cost hitting small-scale farmers hardest.
Yeah, the high costs, the need for technical know-how, difficulty accessing finance, it creates a barrier to entry.
Policy and regulatory gaps are also slowing things down.
Definitely. This study points this out clearly. Often there's a lack of clear, supportive policies. Permitting processes can be complex and slow. Zoning regulations might not even explicitly allow for things like agrivoltaics, or they might have restrictive rules.
Groups like the American Farmland Trust are pushing for better policies.
Yes, advocating for clear definitions, streamlined permitting, and targeted incentives to encourage adoption, especially for dual-use systems like agrivoltaics.
And finally, consumer perception. People thinking indoor-grown food isn't natural.
It's a factor. Some consumers might have concerns about taste, nutrition, or just the whole idea of food grown under artificial lights without soil. There's also concern about the overall energy footprint of CEA, even if it's solar-powered. Education and transparency are really needed to build consumer trust and market demand.
So overcoming all these hurdles needs a concerted effort. Finance, policy, education, continued R&D.
Absolutely. It requires collaboration across the board.
Okay, so challenges are real. But despite them, this isn't just a futuristic concept. It is happening now all over the world. Let's talk about some of the practical applications and case studies the study highlights. It's good to see it in action.
It really is inspiring. For vertical farms, the study mentions Goodleaf Farms in Canada, focusing on the incredible land efficiency and reducing emissions, and Aero Farms in the U.S., which is known for using renewable energy and sophisticated AI optimization in their operations.
And in greenhouses and agrivoltaics, that Sundrop Farms in Australia sounds amazing.
Isn't it? Growing tomatoes in the desert, using concentrated solar power not just for electricity, but also for heat and even desalinating water. That's a landmark project.
Then you have Gotham Greens doing urban rooftop hydroponics with on-site solar in U.S. cities, and Freeheimar in Iceland.
Growing tomatoes year-round using geothermal heat and renewable electricity for lights in, Iceland, it shows what's possible even in extreme climates. Green Valley Farms in Canada has a big 10-acre agrivoltaic greenhouse cutting energy costs by 40%.
Wow. And container farms are popping up too.
Yeah, they're proving really effective for distributed or rapid deployment. The study mentioned ZNMEOX in Kenya using off-grid solar containers for maize, which cut their diesel irrigation costs by 60% and boosted yields.
60% cost saving.
And Sustinier in Singapore using solar-powered modular units for lettuce with incredibly high yields. Great for remote areas or tight urban spots.
It's not just vegetables either, right? Solar powering other ag processes.
Exactly. Solar for cooling almonds or refrigerating wine in California. Solar cold storage in India, cutting fruit spoilage dramatically. Even floating solar panels on irrigation ponds, like in Singapore, powering hydroponics.
And it's not just big corporations. The community-based projects sound really impactful.
They really are. They often focus on benefit stacking, delivering more than just energy or food, like the Denver Botanic Gardens project.
Right, a 1.2 milliW agrivoltaic site providing discounted energy and food to low-income families, plus education, and community input was key.
That's crucial. Equilibrium 3 in Minnesota is another great example. Community solar supporting veterans housing and funding energy efficiency upgrades, all built on local partnerships.
And that Detroit Solar Neighborhood project sounds incredible. Large-scale urban agrivoltaics, powering city buildings, but with deep community engagement on what crops to grow, farmer stipends, home energy programs.
It's a really holistic approach. These projects show that when you involve the community and build strong partnerships, you can deliver clean energy, local food, jobs, education, equity, resilience, all from one project.
So the models exist. The challenge seems to be scaling them and making the knowledge and funding accessible, especially for smaller operations. Bridging that gap between the cutting-edge research and widespread reality.
That's exactly it. Translating the complexity into practical, affordable solutions is the next big step.
Okay, looking ahead then, what does the study see as the future trends and opportunities? Where is this technology going next?
It's moving fast. On the technology front, solar panels are just going to keep getting better. Perovskites and tandem cells are pushing for higher efficiencies. Better stability AI is actually helping accelerate that research to lower costs, and more options for flexibility and transparency.
BIPV, the building integrated stuff, will likely become more common.
For sure. And solar trackers will get smarter, using AI not just to maximize energy capture, but also to precisely manage shade for crops in agrivoltaic systems.
Energy storage is also booming? What's next there?
Higher energy density, longer lifespans, faster charging, lower costs, better safety. That's the direction for batteries. Solid-state and flow batteries could become major players, and expect to see more smart microgrids using AI and IoT to optimize energy use on-site, enhance resilience, and even enable farms to sell services back to the grid. And AI-driven optimization will be everywhere.
We talked about smart lighting recipes.
Right, but also optimizing storage dispatch, participating in demand response, comprehensive crop management, predicting pests, automating feeding and watering, forecasting yields. AI is poised to make these farms much more efficient and autonomous.
The intelligent farm concept really coming to fruition. Data-driven, self-optimizing.
Managing energy and production as a single integrated system. That's the trajectory.
So, to make all that happen faster, what needs to change in terms of policy, market, and finance?
Clear policies and targeted incentives are critical.
Yeah.
The study calls for things like grants, tax credits, loan guarantees, specifically aimed at solar CEA and agrivoltaics. And simplifying those permitting and zoning hurdles is huge.
Like the American Farmland Trust recommendations.
Exactly. Plus, support for R&D, setting standards for technology and produce, and investing in training for farmers and technicians.
And on the money side, new financing models.
Definitely needed. Things like energy as a service, where a third party owns and operates the energy systems, community solar models, crowdfunding, green bonds, public-private partnerships to share risk and investment.
And developing the market itself.
Yeah, things like clear certification and labeling for sustainably grown or solar-powered produce, educating consumers to build that trust and demand, and getting retailers on board who are committed to sustainable sourcing.
And how does all this fit into the bigger picture, the major global challenges we're facing?
It has a huge role to play. For climate change, it's direct mitigation through clean energy generation, plus adaptation by allowing food production indoors, independent of increasingly extreme weather.
Floating solar helping conserve water, too.
Right. Reducing evaporation from reservoirs while generating power. For urbanization and growing food demand, it enables producing fresh food right in or very near cities.
Shorter supply chains, better food safety, enhanced urban food security.
The study even suggests CEA could be vital for maintaining food production in water-stressed regions under future climate scenarios.
And resource scarcity, water and land.
The high water efficiency of hydro and aquaponics is key. And vertical farming, BIPV, agrivoltaics all maximize land productivity.
Plus potential for a circular economy approach, using waste heat, waste materials.
Yes, integrating things like biogas production from plant waste, using waste heat from other processes, designing closed-loop systems like aquaponics, it all fits.
So based on all this analysis, what are the final recommendations from the study? Who needs to do what?
It breaks it down pretty clearly. Policymakers. Create clear strategies, put incentives in place, streamline the regulations, support R&D, promote standards, invest in training.
For farmers and operators.
Do your homework. Feasibility studies are crucial. Prioritize energy efficiency right from the design stage. Look for partnerships. Embrace smart management tools and AI, and educate your customers about the benefits. Stay informed.
Researchers and developers.
Keep pushing on efficiency, durability, and cost reduction, especially for those transparent and flexible PV options and better storage. Develop smarter AI for holistic optimization. Do thorough life cycle assessments. Figure out better end-of-life recycling solutions. And collaborate widely. And investors.
Develop financial products tailored to these unique projects. Incorporate environmental and social factors into investment decisions. Support things like green bonds. Partner with technical experts to understand the risks and opportunities. Okay, so let's try to pull all this together. Solar-powered controlled environment agriculture. It really does feel like a transformative step for how we produce food sustainably.
It does. We've looked at all these different systems, vertical farms, hydroponics, aquaponics, high-tech greenhouses, and how they're integrating solar power to meet their energy needs.
And the technology is just racing ahead. More efficient solar cells, transparent panels, smarter batteries, AI optimizing everything. It's leading towards these truly intelligent farms.
The benefits are compelling. Lower carbon footprint, incredible water and land savings, less chemical use, reduced energy costs, good potential ROI with support, new market avenues, better food security, community building, higher quality crops.
But, and it's a big but, the journey has real hurdles. That high upfront cost is still a major barrier. The absolute critical need for reliable, well-integrated energy storage is paramount, especially given those integration defect stats.
Plus the technical complexity, the geographical limits of sunlight and space, the need for supportive policies, and winning over consumer perception.
Yet the future seems pointed towards these smarter, more efficient systems playing a really vital role in tackling huge global issues: climate change, feeding growing cities, dealing with scarce resources.
Accelerating that future requires everyone pulling together, though. Policy, finance, Tech developers, researchers, farmers, real collaboration.
It feels like it's about more than just growing lettuce indoors. It's about building food systems that are resilient, local, and genuinely kinder to the planet for a pretty unpredictable future.
Exactly.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into solar-powered indoor farming, here's something to think about. If we can now realistically grow abundant food year-round, pretty much anywhere, powered by sunlight captured on a skyscraper wall or across a desert floor, what other fundamental limits on agriculture, things we've always taken for granted, might we be about to overcome in the coming years?
That's definitely something to mull over until our next deep dive.